Question 28, Mr. Moorhouse.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to ask the Chairman of the Post Office if she will make a statement on the negotiations of new contracts for the main post offices in Douglas and Ramsey.
Chairman of the Post Office, Miss Edge.
Thank you, Mr. President. Contract negotiations for Douglas Strand Street Post Office and Ramsey Post Office are ongoing. Due to the commercially confidential nature of these matters, no further information can be provided.
Noting the answer about confidentiality, Mr. Moorhouse.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Chairperson, for a limited answer. With regard to the negotiations for the Douglas office, are those wholly independent of the other post offices operated by that company? And would a decision to terminate that contract impact on the other network that that company has?
And what will the water pressure be?
Can you need a smart meter for this one? Clearly, as I've said, I can't say too much about these contracts, but they're two contracts that are currently in negotiation. So, but the impact on the rest of the sub-post office network is not impacted by these two individual contracts.
Supplementary, Mr. Hooper.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My understanding is that the contracts are due to expire until 2022. So at least that's the information according to the Post Office's tender documents that they publish online. So my question for the Chairman is, will these contracts be tendered in an open way, or are these negotiations ongoing with individual providers?
Chairman to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I said, we're in contract negotiations with these two two places at the present time, so I can't say any more about that.
Question 29, Mr. Hooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask the Chairman of the Post Office what steps have been taken to ensure adequate resources to allow for regular open tendering in line with government policy.
Miss Edge to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. Isle of Man Post Office is responsible for its own procurement and employs resources, including a qualified procurement manager, to fulfil its planned procurement activities.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really admire the way the Chairman managed to completely not answer my question there. Just to give an example of what I'm concerned about, looking on the Post Office's publications of tenders and non-competitive action, last year it appeared they tendered for one service and there were 15 non-competitive actions undertaken. The year before there were 2 competitive tenders and 14 items of non-competitive tendering. The reason given most often in the Chairman's most recent answer and also on these very public documents is limited resources within procurement or other tenders are being prioritised, which clearly speaks to the fact there is an issue with resourcing the procurement process within the Isle of Man Post Office. So I go back to my original question. Clearly the resources are not adequate in order to fulfil all of their tendering, seeing as most of the reasons they don't tender are due to limited resources. So what steps is the Chairman taking to make sure that this is going to be resolved and the Post Office can return to a regular process of open competitive tendering?
Chairman to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope the Department, the Honourable Member for Ramsey's in, publishes all their procurement plans, etc. Obviously, we have adequate resources engaged to fulfil our planned procurement activities. However, we're in a very dynamic environment at the Post Office, and unanticipated demand on these resources occurs. So we prioritise our tendering at that time. And as a commercially focused organisation with a profit objective, there will always be a balance to be struck between financially responsible resource planning and ensuring adequate resources are available for all eventualities. Thank
Final
you, Mr.
supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I find it quite bewildering that the Chairman can say they have adequate resources when the Post Office themselves admit that they cannot fulfil their regular tendering plans. This isn't just unexpected tenders, this is their regular tendering plans because of limited resources. So I'd like the Chairman, if she can just take this on board, go away and actually have a think about providing a genuine and honest answer to this Honourable Court about why they are suffering from limited resources within their procurement team and what steps she intends to take to make sure the Post Office gets back onto an open and competitive tendering basis for its contracts.
Miss Edge.
Thank you, Mr President. Clearly the member doesn't listen to many of the debates in the post office in here, and we've had a significant change in staffing within our procurement section, whilst we always need to try and return to profit. However, we do have a risk and audit committee at the post office as well, and we also get externally audited by external auditors, and we also have an internal audit from the audit division, which is part of Treasury. Now, nothing has been raised of any concern within any of these audits, so I'm unsure why the member seems to think we should suddenly put loads of resources in for unexpected possible procurement that comes along when we're trying to return the business to profit. And obviously the honourable member doesn't think we go out and search for work. We're searching for work all the time, and there's peaks and troughs in every business, and it's a commercial operation where we work with this. But again, I will say to the honourable member, how many times have I invited you to Isle of Man Post Office? Have you bothered coming along? No, you haven't.